Welcome to another fun-filled Friday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in Innovative Colorado right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakina McGee, which is she. I am Sydney Brownhead. That's me. You can follow yours surely on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me, Keenan McGee, on the Twitter and at Keenan's coming again, the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. You want to know why? Because we said so, that's why. And also, you can catch up on the other live shows that we have airing throughout the week. So if you happen to miss them, you can go back and watch them and listen to them at your own leisure. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app today. Speaking of Sports Zone Chicago, please follow us on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, please find and follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Where you say buy a podcast, glad you asked. You can subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast, WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow on all social media platforms at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, that's at War Media, a.k.a. War Media, a.k.a. let me spell this right, WARR Media, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. There you go, Sid. Just slow down. So thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. You have any definite opinions during our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you can always hit us up in the comment section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something silly or stupid, I've given Lakina full power to give you fools to be a land, be a boot.
Bye-bye.
But before we begin, we must remind you that you can also catch Sports Zone Chicago, now available on Roku TV. That's right. So celebrate with the squad. Get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap on that sports folder and download their Sports Zone Chicago app. If you don't have a Roku television, you have some handheld devices laying around, your iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your personal PC, your Chromebook. Just hit up that Google Play Store and download that Roku TV app and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now on Roku TV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, live and on demand.
Anytime, anywhere, hot or cold, or anywhere in between.
And you know we will provide.
Go ahead, Sid.
Coming up on the show for today, we'll get into the local and national baseball scene. It's a kind of a mixed bag this week. We'll dissect all of it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. At the top of the next hour, we'll have a new guest on. His name is Mr. Joey Christopolus. He's from the Bleav Network and Sports Talk Chicago. He's going to hop on with us to talk the mess of the baseball teams. Also, we're going to get you ready for Chicago Bears training camp. We're going to ask him about his thoughts on the Chicago Bears as he hosts a Bears podcast on Sports Talk Chicago. And we'll get into Diamond Sports, who owns Valley Sports. That's another team that's been dropped from their network. And we'll let you know what that is, plus some other sports media news. And I'm sure we'll find a surprise or two along the way. So stay tuned, buckle up, because here we go.
All right, Sid, we're going to get right to it and switch it up a little bit here on Second City Sports. We'll talk about baseball and the rest is like he says in just a second, but we want to talk about the stuff that's been going on in Northwestern, some of the developments that's been coming on the last couple of days. I'll start with the latest development because this just came across the wires. I would say maybe about early this morning. Apparently, this is according to, I guess, a couple of former players, Ramon Diaz, who's been kind of like, I don't want to say he's been the face, but he's kind of been at the forefront of all this with all the hate, the alleged hazing and everything else that's been happening over at Northwestern. According to him, this is an interview he did along with several other players that told Josh Peter, who is a writer for the USA Today, who writes for college football. They alleged that the associate head coach, Matt McPherson, allegedly, this is all, I gotta make sure I gotta keep, this is gonna be like the word of the day for the next 15 minutes here, allegedly witnessed the alleged hazing. I won't get into like the specific details because it gets a little bit, it's sort of like stomach churning and graphic, but, apparently there's also like text mess, he's, sent some texts to some of the players, and he came into the locker room, talking about Coach McPherson did. Saw the players do the naked push-ups that Diaz, who's a former offensive lineman from 05 and 08, and among some the other former players, that happened here. And so we've been talking about this for the last few weeks, and we talked about it with some of a couple of our good friends, Mark Grody from 6-7 to Score, and also to our girl Christine Manica from KXRB. And we all agreed that this was going to get a lot worse, a lot worse. And it sounds like it's that's exactly what's happening here.
Yeah, and especially when you deal with cases like this involving hazing or college sports, it really does get messy. Reading some of the details and listen to local radio outlets, sports radio outlets in particular, you hear some of this alleged incidents that took place. Like you said, it's really stomaching. Now, we all know that whether it's at your job or any other place, you had to go through some type of hazing. I'm using air quotes here, but we understand. We hear stories throughout the years, Lakina, about players being taped to the goal posts. Especially in the NFL, if you're a rookie, you had to sing your school's fight song. I'm here for it to a point. If you make it fun, I get it. Some rookies, especially in the NBA, you had to buy veterans their meals and just to pay your dues. Buy them their meals. Get their newspaper, wash their cars. Something productive and something fun. But if it takes it too far, like doing naked push-ups and an alleged racial incidents that really crosses the line, that's where I have a problem with it. And the other thing they have a problem with, I know we're gonna dive into in the segment, but you ever heard from the Northwestern school president ever since that silly statement released once this thing kicked off almost 2 weeks ago this weekend? You ever heard from the AD? You haven't heard from anybody else? I know Pat Fitzgerald has been fired ever since our last couple of shows, but you really haven't heard from the leadership in power. And this is embarrassing for the school, and not just for the football team, but for the whole school as well. The people that are more active in this, and those student reporters at the Daily Northwestern, as we said before in the last couple of shows, we'll say it here. Shouts out to them for getting the story out. But the leadership at Northwestern has failed the student body, and they should be removed as well.
Yeah, Michael Schill, who is the president, and Derek Greck, I should say, who is the athletic director. You haven't heard a peep from them ever this whole thing started. Yeah, you saw some statements. Apparently, Mr. Gregg was on vacation when all this took place, and it's sort of one of those things where you're kind of like, look, I'm okay with it. You keep it fun, keep it G-rated and all that stuff. You gotta watch. I've seen like some instances where I guess like part of the quote unquote rituals, they gotta watch Bambi a few times, which it's kind of that's pretty torturous too if you're not if you're a little bit emotional about that. But everything else is stuff like sexual favors allegedly that's been happening at some of these spots. The alleged racism and that Diaz and I can tell that Diaz and a few other African American and brown players allege, they've retained attorney Ben Crump, who, of course, if you guys know, he is a civil rights lawyer who's represented various folks like the family of George Floyd, among others, and Breonna Taylor, among others. So this for me is kind of like, okay, this takes to a whole nother level. This goes beyond Hayes, and it seems like an institutional kind of thing where I know some people said that, should they shut down the program for this year? Because Big Ten Media Day is coming up next week. So you got to think that if you're the Big Ten, this is the last thing you wanted. So especially for the new Big Ten commissioner, I got to look up his name real quick, but this is not the thing you wanted to have to deal with in your first few months on the job. So if you're Tony Petiti, I think that's how you say his name, he just took over a few months from the last few months. I don't think he wants to deal with this as first, Big Ten Media Day. And also, too, it's going to be in Chicago, where Northwest is about a half hour north of the city. This is the last thing I'm sure he wanted to deal with everything else that's been going on. So it's just like, if the NCAA will have to get involved, then, we'll see. But it's just like, this is going to get far worse.
You're listening to Second City Sports on the Friday edition right here on Live and Live in Color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakina here with you talking about the Northwestern hazing football situation. Lakina, I'll bring up the point that Christine Manica, our good buddy, did last week on during her segment. When does the NCAA get involved? I think it's still too soon for them to get involved because, like we said, things was going to get a lot worse before it gets better. More details are starting to come out. When does the NCAA get involved? And number two, when does the police get involved? Not just the Evanston police, but will they? Maybe I'm too far fetched to suggest this, but when does the FBI get involved? Especially like we just brought up with the alleged racial incidents those potential players had to go through, and some other things that alleged acts that fall with racial and sexual harassment lines. When does the FBI get involved, if they get involved at all? I think it's still a lot of questions left to be answered. And does the FBI get involved? And is it out of the Evanston police hands? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we're seeing in the last few years that Northwestern has been, squeaky clean. I'll say that. I mean, of course, we know about the point shaving scandal that happened 40 years ago involving the football team. We heard about all that stuff that happened during the baseball team the last few years. Of course, Brian Anderson, of course, former Sox outfielder, is now taking over that program. We talked about all the different, cheerleading scandals that have came out. I think one of the young ladies who brought the cheerleading scandal to the forefront, had comments about this stuff is happening right now, and she said she wasn't surprised. So, Northwestern hasn't been like the most, I don't want to say like squeaky clean program, if you will. So this is like, you're kind of in the forefront here if you're Northwestern, and I think a lot of people are gonna have to answer some questions, and yeah, it's going to get a lot worse. And I kind of feel like, this is just the tip of the iceberg of what's going to happen here. And it's just like, it's a little kind of crazy how all this kind of like transpired over the years. And, if all this is true, and this goes back to, I guess, what, like maybe even when Coach Fitzgerald was a player there, because apparently this type of stuff's been happening, I guess, even when Gary Barnett was the coach, when the late Randy Walker was there, and now with, well, not currently, of course, he's gone now, but even now with Fitzgerald. So this goes back years, apparently. So there's going to be a whole lot that's going to come down the pike. And I think, look, if you're Northwestern, you're going to have a lot to answer to. And like Christine said, I mean, it will be interesting to see if more and more stuff comes out. Will get more involved with the NCAA?
And also, too, Lakina, I don't know if you heard the interview this week by former NFL defensive coordinator and head coach Dave Weinstein, who's now a contributor for 6-7 The Score here in Chicago. Plus, he does great work with our guy Ken Davis over at NBC Sports Chicago, covering, analyzing the Chicago Bears. He was on, I Bleav it was Mullion Hall, on the sports morning show on 670 The Score here in Chicago. And he talked about, he was interviewed the other day by Northwestern, but the higher-ups couldn't give him a role for an official role for this upcoming season to take over the football team. And I'm just paraphrasing, he was just talking about how they wanted him to be part of the change, a part of the cleanup, because Northwestern has to clean up this mess right now, and they're still very early in the process. But they did everything under the sun but give him the head coaching title. And he said it was just, what wasn't enticing enough to him. It was too big of a mess. And you talked about that article we talked about in our last couple of episodes that came by former LSU head coach Ed Orgeron. He said he's not stepping into that job. And so Dave Weinstein saw the same things. Like, there's this organization there. You couldn't give me, you could throw me everything in front of me except for the head coaching title. I'm not taking that job. So everybody who's a viable head coaching candidate, who's a free agent right now, they're not going with this Northwestern job right now. And it has to be someone from within, but they're affiliated, they have been or still are affiliated with this program in terms of the alleged hazing scandal. They cannot be the coach either. So someone eventually is going to have to take that job.
Yeah, it looks like they may have to, I don't want to say they may have to kind of like strip everything down, but it looks like, especially if what is being said true, that some of the coaches knew about this, and were even witness to it, they may have to kind of like wipe everything clean and kind of just start from scratch. And I'm not saying you should shut down the program for the next year or two. I mean, the only good thing about that is that, the players, assuming that they weren't involved in the hazing themselves, they probably be able to go to other schools and whatnot. But like, there's still a lot to be decided here. And if you're Tony Petitti, like I said, the Big Ten commissioner, you're going to be wondering, like, okay, you're going to have to call, the higher-ups Northwestern, thinking, okay, what's going on here, folks? I mean, y'all better tell me something.
Yeah, and like we said before at the top, there's a lack of leadership at the top for Northwestern. They failed their student body. They failed the sports department. So there's a lot to be uncovered here. I will say this to wrap this up before we break for the bottom of the hour. Shouts out to Lawrence Holmes of 670 The Score Chicago. I know him and Dan Bernstein, along with our guy Jonathan Hood over at ESPN 1000, have done a great job covering this story for their respective shows. I think Lawrence Holmes brought up this point earlier this week on his show. He said that I think if this was regarding to shutting down this upcoming football season, if these allegations had reached this ugly head like in March and early April, I think that would have been a strong consideration to shut it down. But since we're getting close to Media Day, Big Ten Media Day, which is next week, I mean, they're now less than 40 days away from the start of the football season. I don't think a shutdown for the football team for the season is going to be is necessary because you know as well as I do, Lakina, the Northwestern. I know there's bigger programs like Michigan, Wisconsin that make all the money for the Big Ten, but there's too much money involved here. It's too much close into the timeline for them to shut down the season. I think if you can do it, if the NCAA is smart, make them bowl eligible. I don't think they have a great team to make it to a bowl game this year anyway. But you can slap a no postseason berth for this year. And then once the real investigation is over, we assume around this time next year, then all the stuff is going to go down. But shutting the season down when you a little bit over a month for the season starting, I don't think it's going to happen. But here's the thing: Northwestern better lawyer up because a whole lot of people are, as you talked about, with all the attorneys trying to get in on the act now. They're gonna have to pony up a lot of money. I don't think it's going to be pretty.
Well, and I get what Lawrence was saying that hey, it might be a little bit too late, didn't get too close to the season to shut it down, but the NCAA may have to get involved here, and they may could say, hey, look, y'all, we're not, this goes beyond like gaming games and stuff like that. So I think that still could be determined. So look, we still got some time between now and the first game of their first game of the season. So sure, this goes still, and a lot could happen. So like. To be continued, folks. So,
yeah.
So, oh boy, that was a heavy way to start the program. But we're gonna lighten things up here a little bit. Of course, the Sox saved themselves getting swept by the Mets, and also to the Cubs. We'll see if they can kind of get it together because they definitely need to win the rest of these games against the Cardinals. Also, there's a new team in the league in the AL East and a whole lot more. So we'll talk this week in baseball coming up. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown, Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. Diamond Talk coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on this fun Friday Fun edition. We're live in Live in Color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. That's Lakina. I'm Sid. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan McGee on the IG.
We have less than 85 minutes left of this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. If you want to hit us up in the comments section, please do so at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you.
All right, Sid. So kind of a mixed bag, I guess, depending on how you look at it. If you're, a fan of our baseball teams, as we talk some diamonds here in this segment. Well, I'll start with the Sox. I mean, the Sox, keep themselves from getting swept by the Mets. And the reason
beat the Mets.
Yeah, your boy. Look, you avoid the sweep. That's all I guess you can do with this at this point. They have a big series coming up. Sid's usually like the one that's usually very optimistic when it comes to this. When it comes to the Sox, he's just like, oh boy, he's not in a very good mood this week, kids. But I mean, look. But I guess it's better than getting swept, I guess. And you have a big series coming up against the Twins starting tonight on the road over at Target Field. And what else? What can I say at this point? I mean, some of the various trade rumors have been flowing around and such. I mean, what do you think, Sid?
Here's all I have to say about that Mets series. Number two, just a quick breakdown of this series. Giolito, I don't know if his trade value was shot. I don't think so with that bad start on Tuesday. I'm not going to blame it on the other outside forces. If you don't know what we're talking about, as Lakina would say, Google is your friend. We'll leave it at that. But his start wasn't good. He still has good trade value, but that start on Tuesday didn't help. But the White Sox offense started to wake up. I was proud of that, but Tim Anderson did Tim Anderson things despite having a good second half and had an ugly pop out to end that game, which he should have taken what the pitcher was giving him, and you would have tied the game, but that's neither here or there. The second game on Wednesday, Touki Toussaint has been okay for the White Sox. He's replacing Mike Clevenger in the rotation, but you made Justin Verlander look like he's 25 instead of 40. And then, of course, yesterday you took advantage of former White Sox pitcher Jose Quintana in the first couple of innings. You actually started to look like a real baseball team. And then after the game, Tim Anderson, even though he was picked off during the game, he didn't look happy. I'm not saying you should have celebrated like you won the World Series, but there's just something going on with him. We won't get into that too much, but it's just that you expect the move or moves for this White Sox team to happen. within the next 2 weeks before the trade deadline. That's all I have to say about that. Now, I know you talked about the rumors that's been out there over this last week or so. We're going to reports using air quotes here. The Astros, you could tell someone from the Astros organization was putting this out because it stated that, we're interested in Dylan Cease. We're interested in Luis Robert. Do you really think in a perfect world that the White Sox, yes, I know they have some incompetent people in the front office, but do you really think they could be that dumb to trade both of those guys in season? And do you think while Mr. Reinsdorf is still alive, hopefully he's alive for a long time, he's in his late 80s now, but do you think that he wants to go through another rebuild another rebuild before he passes? No.
No.
And he wants to retool. If you're going to retool, which they will, those only two guys, Robert and Cease, are untouchables. Everybody else can go.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting that that celebration that TA had. I think kind of it was sort of like, okay. I mean, yeah, you get your boy getting swept by the Mets. I mean, yippee. But it's just kind of crazy to me that that at this point of the season, look, they're 9 games back. I mean, it's just one of those things where you're kind of like, okay, everybody's a fair game. So, look, if you get something, if someone offers you something from Lance Lynn, who I think is starting this week, will start this weekend.
Yeah, he'll start tonight's game, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll check. Yeah, we'll check that. We'll check the starters. But yeah, if you get something from Lance Lynn, fine. I don't, like I said, I think we remember Giglio, was pulled from the start we were supposed to have last weekend. So there might have been his time might have been off. So I don't think it devalued him, on the trade market. I see, Tim Anderson, I see what you're doing. You're trying to get your trade value up so you can get out of town. We like I said, I won't get into it, but we'll leave it at that. But look, if Andrew Vaughn or somebody like that, maybe if you get something from that. I know Eloy. Look, we love Eloy, but I mean, it's gotten to a point where it's kind of like, okay, it was such a season, Robert Jr. Like, okay, everyone else can go. Bye-bye. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm trying to, see, Sid's being about as pessimistic as I am about this team. That's never a good sign. So,
And I like to be fair and balanced as well. But this White Sox team, yes, I still want them to win. But let's be realistic. Is the door shut for this group? Yes. Can they still rebound and be better for next year? Yes. But the people that are running it, Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn, I just don't trust. I don't trust them in another rebuild. That's going to be even uglier. But just looking at this team going into next year, Lakina, you have a bunch of free agents or a bunch of free agents. You're going to have to fill out a starting rotation because your 2 starting pitchers for next year are Michael Kopech and Dylan Cease, who has 2 more years of control, which the White Sox do have for him start for next year in 2025. Outside of that, you need to fill 3 starting rotation spots, perhaps 4 because they get in. Their pitchers get injured all the time, i.e. Davis Martin this year you were supposed to depend on. He has Tommy John surgery. He's going to be out for until next year. I know Gary Crochet, who came back early this year, he's injured again. You might have to start him slowly again. He might be that 3rd guy in your starting rotation next year. Who knows? But we'll see about that. But you have another bunch of free agents that's on this team next year for after the season. Elvis Andrews. He won't be back. Yasmani Grandal, his best days are behind him. Thank you for 2021, but your best days are behind you. And you have a few others as well. But this team is going to look totally different next year.
And we'll see what happens there as we go to the North Side, as we're talking baseball here on Second City Sports. On Sports on Chicago, Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you. The Cubs are kind of in the same boat, I guess, as the Sox. I mean, after losing their opener to the Nationals, they did end up winning the rest of the series. They won 2 out of 3, including on Tuesday series that they won 17-3. I guess what the Bears beat the Commanders. I guess you could probably look at the score like that. But, but unfortunately, last night not so much. Jordan Walker, Paul DeJong both each hit home runs, 2-run home runs, as the Cardinals beat the Cubs 7-2. And it's sort of one of those things where I've heard Cubs fans go back and forth about, hey, look, this team still has a shot. Look, they're 8.5 back. The Brewers, we'll get to the Brewers in a second, but it's sort of Marcus Stroman didn't have his best start. 4 earned runs, only 4 strikeouts, and off 7 hits, and you wonder, like, and I know he said that he's been very adamant he wants to stay in Chicago, all that stuff, blah blah blah. But it's just like, I don't know. I mean, because they're actually inconsistent. And look, 45 to 51, that's not good if you're the Cubs, and you probably are going to be in sell mode. And I know people say, hey, look, let's trade Stroman, try to get some value for him, and Bellinger too. I mean, they could be back next year, but there's no guarantee that these guys are going to be back next year. So I mean, it's kind of like counterintuitive, but it's sort of one of those things where and also the crowds too. I mean, I'm sure the crowds are a little bit better because you're placing the Cardinals. St. Louis is not that far from Chicago.
I still saw some empty seats last night, even though it was majority full. I'm gonna check the attendance real quick, but I still saw a few empty seats in Wrigley last night. We talked about this last year too, Lakina, where there were no expectations that you got rid of the rest of that core from that 2016 team. Everybody knew that the Cubs weren't going to be competitive last year, but some of the fans still showed up. And they were still in the middle of Major League Baseball in attendance. But this year the Cubs fans are vocal, even though we told you they weren't going to be great, but they're on the cusp of doing something. They need another off season to build up their roster, but it was 83% full last night, Lakina. Of course, Wrigley Field holds over 41,000. 34,000 were in attendance last night. Of course, I know with baseball you could manipulate the numbers here or now, but there were 34,000 there last night. And with the weather this weekend, it should be a nice crowd for the remaining games of that series. But with this Cubs team, I didn't expect them to be great this year. Now, did I expect it to be more competitive? Yes, and they're showing you that so far. Now, could have had a couple more wins under their belt? Sure, but I didn't expect it to be this great team. But I think what the frustration comes in, Lakina, is that no one, including yours truly, didn't expect this NL Central to be like the AL Central trash. Let's be honest here. The Cincinnati Reds, we'll get to them in a minute. But Cincinnati Reds, they were supposed to be the Oakland A's of the National League. And look, they're around the top of the division right now. Milwaukee, it looks like they're starting to take off here a little bit, but no one is expected to take them real seriously. Everybody thought that St. Louis was going to be at the top of the division. Look where they're around where the Cubs are right now in terms of the standings. And so, and I get where Cubs fans are coming from, and rightly so. But as we said, Lakina, this was an important week for the Chicago Cubs, whether the players can change the minds of management, ready to get rid of players like Stroman and Bellinger or not. So far, they're off to a rough start. You take the last two games of that Washington National Series. You looked lethargic last night against the Cardinals. Now, they had time to win the series, even win the rest of them this weekend, but they need to buckle down here. And I know you missing Dansby Swanson, good, but it's just, like you said, they're consistently inconsistent. And watching last night's game, Lakina, Christopher Morel, as we said, you need to find a position for him. I know he's not a shortstop, but he started there last night. As I mentioned, Dansby Swanson, their all-star, is out. And we said that they need a third baseman, Lakina. Patrick Wisdom, he has a nice bat. He's your DH, but he had 2 bad errors last night. He should not be playing that third base ever again.
I think we all agree on that. Well, I think we all agree on that. And look, I think that the whole thing with the Cubs. I mean, look, I was kind of expecting. We said during previews, I said that if they can kind of like be right there at 500, they can kind of like at least make a little bit of a shot at the NL Central. And we saw that. Look where Pittsburgh is. I mean, you thought Pittsburgh was leading the division at one point. Look where they're at now. St. Louis. I mean, they're 10 back. I mean, as we're recording this, Cincinnati is kind of falling back to earth a little bit. I know they won their last couple of games, but they're kind of like, we don't know if they're ready to kind of shine yet. So look, if they can win these last 3, and I'm talking about the Cubs against the Cardinals, maybe they can, maybe gain a couple of games or get to 6.5 back, and we'll see, this next week. I don't know, but it's sort of one of those things where you're kind of like, I know that Cubs fans are very frustrated, and look, will ownership care? And I think forget, Connor Hawkins and Jed Hoyer for a second. Will Tom Ricketts care? I mean, you got, people aren't even coming to the ballpark now. that's not a good sign where, you got, the day's actually been pretty, the weather's actually been pretty solid. It's not too hot like it is in some other parts of the country. It's still a great, game watching experience, but yet it's only about 85% full. I mean, that's not, that's not how you're going to do it, especially if you're trying to make money and perhaps maybe go towards, building a better franchise, consistent franchise. So I don't know. I mean, look, I know those 20 runs that the Cubs scored. I mean, over those last two games against the Nationals, that's tied for their second most in a 2-game span in team history. So it's kind of like, okay, yeah, you do a little bit of spurts, but I don't know what else to say. I got nothing else.
I think if you're a Cubs fan, you're asking management to pick a lane. They did do that this all season, bringing in Dansby Swanson, re-signing Ian Happ, Nico Horner, and not trading Stroman. Okay, we'll see what happens at the trade deadline. But if you're a Cubs fan, like I said, we talk about Jed and Carter Hawkins, but it starts with the Ricketts family. Are you going to let Jed Hoyer do his job and spend again? Because that's what you're going to have to do to make this team better, no matter how the season finishes out.
Yeah,
exactly. If you're if you're a Cubs fan, if the Ricketts family don't let Jed Hoyer and Carter Hawkins cook, as the kids would say, you should be frustrated, and rightfully so. You're not going to go through another rebuild again. And like you said, crowds are not coming as big as you thought they were. And people are starting to tune in a little bit to watch Cubs games on that Marquee Sports Network. But if you think that doing a half-tear rebuild is going to fix it, no, especially after the money you spent this past all season, Cubs fans are not going to go for that, and nor should they.
No, and they shouldn't. So, yeah, I'm getting depressed. Let's talk about the rest of baseball, because I'm getting a little bit depressed here. So, what caught your eye baseball this weekend, in and around baseball?
The Atlanta Braves struggling. They avoided the sweep yesterday. They beat the Arizona Diamondbacks 7-5. Arizona making news on and mostly off the field. We'll get to that later in the show. But the Atlanta Braves avoided the sweep after losing 2-3 to the White Sox last weekend. They avoided the sweep, losing 2 out of 3 to the Diamondbacks. The Tampa Bay Rays, they're struggling too. And now with Baltimore, the Orioles, they lost 2 out of 3 to the LA Dodgers at home early this week. They taped the first game last night in Tampa Bay, the first of 4 games down there in South Florida in extra. So Baltimore's the new leader in the clubhouse in the AL East. If you're a Tampa Bay fan, now you have something to worry about. The New York Yankees being swept by the Anaheim Angels. Former White Sox starter on Wednesday, Carlos Rodon, getting his name in the headlines in the paper. You really have to be that bad to dominate the New York tabloids. And I know he's just returning from his long season injury, but the Yankees, as I said, they need Aaron Judge. If the Aaron Judge comes back healthy, the Yankees are making the playoffs. If Judge is out, no soup for you. I'll leave it at that. And of course, you mentioned Milwaukee Brewers to take 2 or 3 from the Phillies. It looks like Milwaukee's trying to pull away, but Cincinnati, they struggle a little bit too. But as you mentioned, they take the last 2 games of their 4-game series against the San Francisco Giants.
Yeah, going back to Baltimore, it's the first time Baltimore has led the AL East after the All-Star break for the first time since you got all the way back to 2016. So yes, it's been that long. Folks, I don't think a lot of those guys were probably, some of those guys were probably still in the minors when that took place. And as far as the Yankees, when's the last time the Yankees were in last place this late in the season, Sid? I'll give you a guess on what year.
Ooh. I might be wrong, and no, I'm not on Google, so I'm not cheating. 2012.
Oh no, you gotta go further than that, my friend.
Oh, 2008.
And there's actually.
Yeah, I know that's the last year of old Yankee Stadium, then where they didn't make the playoffs.
Right, they didn't make the playoffs that year, but they actually there's actually not the first time they finished in third. If last place after when the season ended, it was 1990, and I think that's something that they want to avoid. So we'll see if Judge is back, but yeah, it's going to be very interesting if he does come back. There hasn't really been any updates, and that's not a good sign if you're the Yankees. So Yankees in last place. I know some people hate it. Well, some people Yankee fans hate it. I know some people like it. So depending on how you look at it. So interesting to see what happens with that. Now the Dodgers again. We'll stick to we'll do the Dodgers for a second. I know they lost those last that last game against Baltimore after avoiding this they unfortunately they didn't tweak the Orioles, but they won 2 out of 3. And look, this is going to get very interesting for the Dodgers because they got another tough weekend series coming up against the Rangers. We'll get to the rest of the scheduling in just a little bit, but I'm wondering for the Dodgers, are they starting to kind of figure things out in that NL West? And I know the Diamondbacks I know some people kind of let them for dead. You know, they did, like you said, they did win 2 out of 3 against Atlanta in Atlanta. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, they have a tough go at it against Cincinnati starting tonight. So, look, I think a lot of these next couple weeks, especially if you're contenders, you're going to want to see who you need to add. Do you need to add another starter, reliever, bat, what have you? And I'm wondering if you're some of these teams, if you're Seattle, I know Seattle, that was a tough.
They had a 4-game series split against the Minnesota Twins, so it was kind of a mixed bag there.
Yeah, not good. They actually did shut out on that rubber master that they were able to split that. But is it going to be kind of I know they're still within striking distance of that last wild card spot, but you wonder is it do they may have to make some minor moves? I mean, Toronto. I mean, look, they're only 5.5 back now. I mean, they're kind of back in. I know they lost 2 out of 3 in San Diego. So it was kind of a mixed bag there for them. So we'll see what happens with that. So yeah, look, a lot of these next couple weeks are going to be very decide as to what teams the contending teams decide to do.
Yeah, a couple of teams that are struggling right now as we go back to the National League. As I talked about the Atlanta Braves earlier, the Florida Marlins. They got swept coming out of the All-Star break at Baltimore, and now they get swept by the St. Louis Cardinals. So this is not good for the Miami Marlins. I still believe that's a good team, but they just got to learn how to win again and win consistently like they did in the first half. So watch out for the Marlins there. I know Phillies struggled a little bit. The Phillies, I'm a more believer in them than I am the Miami Marlins or the Cincinnati Reds. So with Kyle Schwarber there, and don't forget about Zach Wheeler heading up their staff at Aaron Nola. Those are your 2 top pitchers, and they can compete with anybody in the league. So I'm still a believer in Philadelphia in terms of that wild card. As far as the Central is concerned, Lakina, that's a wash. I don't want to get angry and talk about the NL Central again, so we'll leave that alone. Now back to the American League West. Tampa. We talked about Tampa Bay struggling. Like I said, they lost the first game of their 4-game series against Baltimore last night. They got swept earlier this week in a 3-game at Texas. Now Houston, they took care of business against Oakland, but as I said, I don't think Houston's going to go away. Their kryptonite is starting pitching and injuries right now. But are you starting to believe in the Texas Rangers doing damage in the playoffs and winning the AL West?
Yeah, I gotta see if they can win and get in first. I mean, like I said, they got a tough series with the Dodgers starting tonight. So I'm wondering, are we gonna see sort of okay, maybe this is kind of be the time where we may finally take Texas seriously. So we'll see what happens with that. Now let's go through the schedule real quick. Of course, St. Louis and Chicago, they continue their series and coming up in about 20 minutes. But, sorry, folks, no Marquee Sports, no Valley Sports. You got to go to Apple TV Plus. That's the first game of the Apple TV Plus doubleheader, if you will. Baltimore and Tampa Bay. That should be a fun AL East series now that Baltimore's in first place. Colorado and Miami. We'll see if Miami get back on track or losing 6 in a row since coming back from the All-Star break. The second game of the Apple TV Plus doubleheader, you got San Diego and Detroit at 5-4. So those of you in San Diego and Detroit will have to find other avenues to stream that if you don't have Apple TV Plus. Kansas City and the Yankees. Hopefully this will give the Yankees a chance to get back on track. San Francisco and the Nationals. Arizona and Cincinnati battle some young, the young up-and-comers there. And New York, the Mets, and Boston. It should be a pretty entertaining interleague series.
And the rest of the series schedule for this weekend looks like this. Philadelphia visits Cleveland to take on the Guardians. As Lakina mentioned earlier, the Dodgers will travel to Texas to take on the Rangers. Possible World Series preview there. Atlanta visits Milwaukee. Pittsburgh visits Los Angeles to take on Shohei Ohtani's Angels. The Astros visit Oakland, and the Blue Jays visit Lakina Seattle Mariners. And your Fox Saturday Night Baseball schedule looks like this for tomorrow. Most of you will get Atlanta and Milwaukee, while the others will get the sorry-ass White Sox featuring Dylan Cease against the Minnesota Twins.
Our apologies in advance.
Yes.
The FS1 game of the week will be the Mets and the Red Sox at 3:10 on FS1.
Yep, and your Sunday national TV schedule looks like this. The San Diego Padres will take on the Detroit Tigers at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. That's exclusively on Peacock. And your Sunday night baseball game of the week will have the New York Mets visiting Fenway Park to take on the Boston Red Sox.
And that is your schedule for this weekend in Major League Baseball.
Stay tuned for more sports and more fun as Second City Sports continues with Joey Christopolus from the Bleav Network and Sports Talk Chicago, talking Chicago Bears, Chicago baseball, and a whole lot more. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
No, I don't know, though. I'm scared. I mean,
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
All right, welcome back to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you. You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena McGee on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. If you want to hit us up in the comment section, especially for our next guest, you can always go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. And just a daily reminder, Sports Zone Chicago is also available on Roku TV. All right, Lakina, let's not waste any time. Kick it off hour number 2 of this fabulous program. It comes to us courtesy of the Bleav Network and Sports Talk Chicago. Lakina, we pride ourselves on bringing on the best guests that our listeners and our viewers want that we have to offer. And our goal this year was to bring on new people, bring on new voices. I think we have done that thus far. And to continue that trend, we bring on another newcomer. His name is Mr. Joey Christopolus. You can follow him on Twitter at Joey Sports Guy. Once again, at Joey Sports Guy. Joey, welcome to the show. How are you? Welcome.
Hi, Lakina. Hi, Sydney. Thank you so much for thinking of me. Happy Friday. Happy last Friday before Bears training camp. I'm excited to talk to you about all things Chicago sports. Let's do it.
Yes, we're happy to have you here. But I wanted to say before we get started, I wanted to say congratulations on your guest spot on another good friend of the program, Mr. Nick Morawski, on Good Guys Talk back at the White Sox podcast last Sunday night. I actually watched that live, and you did a great job filling in for Pat Hester.
Oh, thank you so much. Such a pleasure to be on the show. They've been on my show a couple of times. I've been friends with Nick Morawski in the comedy Second City scene for 15 years. So the fact that we're not just still buddies, but now we're still like making some sort of version of content together, albeit a very bad White Sox team. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for watching, man. I think they have a great show.
Yes, they do. And like I said, Nick Morawski is a good friend of ours. I actually ran into him at a game recently, so we chopped it up about the White Sox. You know, they get on your nerves sometimes, but, you know, for what we do, we have to talk about them. But we'll put baseball aside for a moment, and we'll, as Lakina said, get our energies up. We get our vibes up. We'll talk about the Chicago Bears. They're reported training camp next week. Expectations are high with many people as far as the possible win totals coming in for this year, and people are looking forward to Justin Fields to see how he can improve from last year to this year. What do you think is the ceiling for this Bears team this year in terms of wins?
Ceiling for a Bears team this year, I think, would be a playoff team, right? I mean, I think that something along the lines of 10, 11 wins would probably go beyond, I don't want to say our wildest dreams, because we should be dreaming a lot wilder than that, just in general in life. But I think anything in the range of probably 7 to 10. I think we can maybe, just saying that number by the end of the season, look at it and say to ourselves, I think we're going to have a couple of things to build on, a couple of things to get really, really excited about. And I would love nothing more than, somewhere in the middle of November, Kornacki's got those khakis on and we're in the Hunt graphic. And playing some games, right? And playing some games that mean something a little bit, and putting it on the line and seeing if Justin Fields can perform, and obviously some other young players. Our team is still very, very young across the board, across the depth chart. So I think that's a reasonable expectation. I mean, I think 10 or 11 would be a high watermark for me.
No, I think Justin Fields. I think I saw somewhere that somebody, I don't know if he said this, but I think someone else said that he could probably pass for 4,000 yards. And I'm thinking that, look, hey, I mean, look, we've seen. I don't want to say we've seen strange things happen. Look at what Jalen Hurts. He had his breakout year last year. The Eagles. He led the Eagles all the way to the Super Bowl. So, but you're looking at some of his targets that'll be for this year. Of course, T.J. Moore, who the Bears got from the Panthers. Cole Kmet, some people say this could be kind of like a breakout year for him. So what do you think the ceiling is for Justin Fields? I mean, I think he has some playmakers now. He'll have a full year in that gets his offense under his belt. So what do you think? What do you think is going to be kind of like is it 4,000? Is it, maybe somewhere, but 2,000, maybe 3,000, somewhere in between?
Yeah. So let's start with those comments about the 4,000 yards that Justin said the other day. Now, look, I think Justin, from this point, I think he is incredibly smart, a great leader. I love hearing everything that he has to say, and I love his confidence. I will say that the 4,000 yard mark, I understand that it's a number in the NFL that we use as a milestone, but it's a bit of an arbitrary number to kind of sort of throw out there and put yourself into. So can we just do one thing at a time first here in Chicago? I mean, we were dead last in pass attempts last year. For a long stretch of time, we had a hard time scoring some points. We were dead last in passing yards. We had a lot of issues there on the passing side of the football. So 4,000 yards. Look, Bears fans, it doesn't have to be 4,000 yards to see drastic improvement from the passing game and Justin Fields. Now, look, I'm going to probably say if this was a betting thing, I would say probably under on the 4,000 yards. And here's why, is that I just still feel like that this offense is probably going to be catered around Justin, which means also maybe 20 to 25, 26 pass attempts a game. Still something. I don't think he's going to be Kirk Cousins throwing it out there 40, 45 times a game. I think it's going to be more in the 20, 25 area. I think we're still going to lean on a running game that honestly led the NFL in rushing yards per game last year. There's nothing wrong with that to keep that going a little bit. And I think a balanced attack is definitely going to help. So incremental progress. Yes. Is it wrong for us to ask for 30 touchdowns for the first time in Bears franchise history from a quarterback? I don't think that that's asking too much. And my expectations for Justin Fields, man, I'm like I'm like borderline like ashamed of myself because all summer long, I walked out of the season and like everybody, I was so excited about Justin Fields. And when you kind of pulled back away from it a little bit, you still saw parts of his game that just hasn't quite translated to that elite level in the NFL. And when I say that, it's when he sticks his right foot in the ground and he has to make a decision on that first read, right? It's about him trying to dissect and try and carve up different zones and different man looks. You know, when they go to man, we do a lot of play action. But when he's in zone, he has to be able to kind of figure it out and be able to dice up a defense a little bit. He needs to improve on that. So I started looking back, and over the summer, I started saying, man, this is a make or break season for Justin Fields, and we need to be as healthy and critical about his play as possible for the future of the franchise. Now, all that being said, it's Friday before training camp, and all of a sudden now I just have this feeling that he is going to be fantastic this year, right? Now I'm back in on, I think he is the guy. He's got everything that I think we've ever been dreaming of. You know, he's got the highlight reels. He's got other players around the NFL singing his praises and calling him a future star. You know, we see it. Now he's just got to go out there and win some games. I'm excited to root full throat all season long for Justin Fields. I hope he gets it done, and I think that expectation should be very, very high for Bears fans.
Let's flip it over to the Bears defense. Looking at their roster, I do like our secondary. Yes, it's young. I know they got the experience last year, even though before the injury bug took place. But how worried are you about the lack of pass rushes? Do you think that Ryan Post will find somebody in quote unquote a diamond in the rough before the season starts to give us a consistent pass rush? How worried are you about a lack of pass rush right now on this roster?
Sydney, I'm worried. I'm terrified. I'm highly concerned. This is what we do, right? Like, this is a month before the season. We start saying these little fun little things about, you know, we're just going to rotate them in and out, and it's going to be the sum of the parts, and everyone's going to stay fresh and all this other stuff. And then opening week happens, and then you look at it and you go, oh my God, what have we done with this pass rush right now? We can't stop anybody. We can't get off the field on 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, and Justin can't even get the ball. So how are we going to evaluate Justin Fields if the defense is on the field, you know, consistently? Look, I think the secondary is young, talented, vibrant, fantastic. I definitely think it's going to be the strength of our team moving forward. Clearly, we allocated a lot of dollars to the linebacker position and added some depth there. I think Tremaine Edmonds is going to be a leader right out of the gate. In a different version, too, as well, because Roquan, fantastic player, made great relationships on the Chicago Bears. It's just going to be a different version of leadership. And it might be something that's kind of refreshing for a young defense. But I'm telling you, Sydney, that last part, they have to sign somebody. And the good news is there are still some bodies out there, right? I mean, take your pick. If it's not Jadeveon Clowney, it's Justin Houston, it's Yannick Ngakoue. I mean, they could sign 2 of these guys. And I think that will hopefully bring us up to what we can consider to be average, above average. Right now, this is a below average pass rush defensive line. I'm really scared. I'm glad that we invested in it in the draft, but to expect to yield results from a defensive lineman in his rookie season with so much expected on him, I think that's a tall order. We keep waiting on Travis Gibson. You know, I can't depend on that personally. And then guys like Andrew Billings and DeMarcus Walker, you know, sure, had strong seasons last year, but now bigger roles. We have seen guys pulled from different situations into a Bears system, got asked to play a bigger role, and they struggled. Look no further than Al-Qadim Muhammad last year. I almost feel like we're kind of doing that in a redux with the DeMarcus Walker situation. They have to sign somebody. I mean, they have to sign someone, a veteran presence that at least when you're running tape during the week, the opponent can just go, this guy has a career. We have to look after this guy. You know what I mean? Someone to put some eyeballs just on somebody, because it's my biggest concern right now. And I'm really worried that we're going to wake up week 1 and look, man, and be like, that unit might be the worst in the NFL, and we got a huge problem.
Yeah, I mean, staying on that defense for a second. I know Eddie Jackson. I know he's been, tweeting. He rarely tweets anyway, but he keeps saying, hey, mark my words. I mean, we're going to have a breakthrough this year. And he's coming off an injury. 29 years old, already had multiple injuries. Do you think he can make a big difference in that secondary?
I hope so. I thought he played really well last year before he got injured. I saw a different version of Eddie Jackson, and I feel like we've seen a couple of different versions, right? We saw the 2018 version, and then the next year we kind of saw contract Eddie Jackson, where maybe the shoulder maybe leading the shoulder in the box to make a tackle wasn't really his priority at the time. And then we saw a rejuvenated guy, I feel like, last year, and a dude who was a leader and a guy who, let's be honest, if we go back and look at the tape, a couple of INTs got taken off the board because of penalties. So, I think when you say that buzzword ball hawk, he was back in there in the mix last year. And I'm really excited to see what he can do with a guy like Jaquan Brisker, who's one of my favorite Bears right now. I mean, this guy flies around the field. He hits people. I mean, granted, he had some bumps in the road, but every rookie does. He's going to be only better this year. Curious to see how Kyler Gordon plays in the slot, but these pieces in place should allow Eddie Jackson to play at his strengths this season. And if he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be really huge for the Chicago Bears. The only question is you can't cover somebody for 6 seconds. So,
yeah, that's true.
Are we going to be mad at Eddie Jackson week 4 because, he can't hold a guy down for 4.5, 5 seconds because we can't get to the quarterback? So, I mean, it's chicken and the egg right there.
Back to the offense, Joey. I want to get your thoughts about these two players. Who, in my opinion, I think that they have something to prove this year. One, Chase Claypool, and number 2, Velus Jones. Of course, he was in Matt Eberflus's doghouse last year. When he was on the field, he made a couple plays, but he really did not see a lot of time on the field last year. Of course, we all know about Chase Claypool. He was acquired via trade in the middle last season, but the injury bug hit him too. Of course, there have been reports that he's not all in. I'm talking about Chase Claypool, but Justin Fields has been working with him for the last few weeks down in Florida. What do you expect out of those two players this year?
Well, let's start with Velus Jones, because Sydney, I love that you're bringing him up because I don't think a lot of people are. That I think this is a player who was someone that we used substantial draft capital on last year, and a guy who, it was interesting. I'm really curious. I would love to hear the story one day of how the coaching staff handled his rookie season, because the obvious is out there. He muffed a couple of punts. He made some mistakes early on. They kind of buried him. They tried to bring him back a little bit and have him earn it, but then he kind of made another mistake. He had to struggle, kind of dressing on game day. And then by the end of the year, he did make a couple of plays, right? And, some games that really didn't mean anything. So when we're talking about the Bears ceiling, and you're talking about, a guy like Tyler Scott that they drafted, and then obviously DJ Moore, the headliner, Darnell Mooney coming back healthy, and of course, Chase Claypool, Velus Jones is a really interesting piece that, look, I don't think we should be counting on him on a game-to-game basis. But if you want to say, we're an offense that's trying to get better, and we're an offense that seems to be kind of dependent on play call and setting up different looks in different situations to succeed, I mean, Velus Jones could be a really interesting, I don't even know X factor, but man, if he gives us 4 to 6 great plays this season, and when I say that, I mean that end around on a 3rd and 12 that gets you 35 yards that no one really saw coming. Maybe a reverse bubble screen or something that he can take to the house. Maybe he bounces free down the sideline and catches a pass. I don't think he needs to do much, but if he adds those 4, 5, 6 little plays that no one else saw coming, man, that could be a real boon to an offense that's trying to get better quickly. Now, Chase Claypool. Fun fact, guys. My beautiful wife is a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. So I've seen a lot of the Chase Claypool before. And I think here's what I will say is that he has a lot to prove this year. He's playing for $1.5 million. And the only reason why I say that is because if he wants to have a continued interest and employment in the NFL, it is on him to go out there and show not just us, but the NFL that he deserves another big contract, or at least another contract after this. Some of the reports in the offseason have been pretty troubling. A lot of them aligned with a lot of the things that we heard out of Pittsburgh. And look, it's tough, right? I mean, he seems like a really good guy. He seems like a good person, and maybe he seems like a personality that isn't that maniacal, I'm 107% in on football all the time, which rubs a lot of people in NFL, buildings the wrong way. But for human beings, you're just kind of like, oh, well, I'm not, that kind of makes sense to me. I do think that he's in the perfect role as the number 3 receiver. Anything above that, I'd probably be pretty terrified. But if you're saying that he's going to get maybe 5 to 7 targets a game, you're definitely going to try and get him going in the red zone a little bit. And then you can kind of mix and match who you want to run down field at different times, whether it is a Mooney, whether it is Cole Kmet, who excelled at seam route play action looks last year, or if it is a Chase Claypool. He needs to be a part of that mix a little bit. And look, for him, it's really going to come down to making plays, because unfortunately, a part of the makeup of his game isn't the fact that he gets open, but the fact that he uses his physical size to catch passes that maybe aren't as catchable for other receivers. So it turns a little bit into a 50-50 who wants it more game. In Pittsburgh, he showed that the first couple of years and made those plays. The last couple of years, he hasn't, and that's really going to be the difference between whether Chase Claypool can be an effective player.
We're talking with new buddy, Bleav Network and Sports Talk Chicago's Joey Christopolus here on Second City Sports. On Sports Talk Chicago, Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you now. Let's go talk about the O-line for a second here, Joe. Darnell Wright, of course, that's the guy that Bears selected. Of course, if you saw him play at Tennessee, he had a lot of snaps, played over almost 1,100 snaps over at Tennessee. Cody Whitehair looks like he's going to be the full-time center. Nate, we've seen Nate Davis, Tevin Jenkins. We'll see how healthy he stays. What do you think about that O-line? And is that going to be sort of the thing where we know it's been a struggle the last couple of years, and will Justin Fields have to run for yards again?
Well, look, I think it's improved, right? And for Bears fans, let's keep it on the positive. Keep it on the positive tip here. Everyone in the place is something that the organization has actively decided to be in that role, right? There isn't Larry Borum just trying to maybe hold it down for a year. There isn't Braxton Jones or a left tackle competition heading into this year. It's not this Lucas Patrick versus I'm already blanking on his name. Who was the center last year that we no longer have? Mustafa. Excuse me. It's Friday. I'm in training camp mode. But I do think that the pieces are in place. There is intention with every single person on that offensive line. I do think that it can be improved. I really do. I think if Braxton Jones, when we all say the word step forward, even a half step forward is good news for the progression and long-term look of this offensive line. I think Tevin Jenkins, when he's healthy, is one of the big reasons why we were one of the great running games in the NFL last year. Justin Fields aside, of course. I was on a pod the other day and we were doing X factors heading into training camp. And I was in a saucy mood and I decided to do a little zag where other people were zigging. And I said, one of the most important guys is this Nate Davis. And just think about it for a second. I know all eyes are on our first round pick, Darnell Wright. But are you really telling me that we're expecting Darnell Wright to be the finished product player his rookie season for the Chicago Bears, manning down the right tackle? I think that's too much to ask. So who is right next to him? A guy who is a veteran, a guy who graded out well last year, a guy who is, in theory, a fully formed person within his potential to execute the job that he is assigned to do. And he's going to be the guy who's going to be tapping Darnell Wright on the thigh for little checks and stuff pre-snap, right? And he's got to help that rookie out and guide him. And the right side of our offensive line, running game-wise, was the most powerful, productive side that we had last year. When we talk about outside run zone scheme, that right side was huge for us. And that's where Nate Davis and Darnell Wright come into play. We spent money on Darnell Wright, right? Cody Whitehair is making a decent amount of money. We thought we were maybe going to have to cut him. We don't know. But we actually went out and intentionally signed Nate Davis to a multi-year deal for some pretty, I'm not saying substantial, but pretty solid bucks, right, for an offensive lineman. I think he's going to be a huge focal point, and I think he's one of the guys on the offensive line of all of them that need to kind of show out and actually produce this year. I think Nate Davis is one of those guys, but I am pretty optimistic right now about this offensive line. I think it's in the best shape it's been in a couple of years.
For a good offensive line to be successful, of course, they got to protect the quarterback and they got to run block very well. Of course, now I'm going to the running backs. David Montgomery out. He goes to Detroit. On the depth chart right now, it looks like Khalil Herbert is going to be a starter. But you have Tristan Ebner. You have Deontay Foreman, who was brought in as a free agent. And then you have Travis Homer from Seattle, who also was brought in as a free agent. Do you think that Khalil Herbert is going to get the majority of the carries, or will it be running back by committee?
Well, I am curious because if we remember last year, it was kind of like 2 series for David Montgomery, 1 series for Khalil Herbert. I do think they are going to try and replicate that. And I'm in agreement with you, Sydney, that I think Khalil Herbert probably deserves first crack. There are a lot of analytics, and then there's a lot of people with 2 eyes that watch the Bears and can see that he is not a very good pass blocker. And that's something that he needs to improve on. He's talked about trying to improve that in the offseason. With these different martial arts boxing techniques to try and add a little punch to that first stun. Because if you can just buy a couple extra seconds, you don't necessarily need to hold the guy there. If you can just kind of get him on that first punch there. So I do think he's going to get first crack. I am kind of curious to see how this all mixes out, though. I mean, they do have some depth there, which is really nice. Deontay Foreman, who came on after they traded Christian McCaffrey for the Carolina Panthers and played really well. He kind of feels like a guy who he's a little bit of a heater guy. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to kind of let him roll the dice a couple of times. And if he hits 7 a bunch, they're just going to keep kind of giving him the ball. So I don't know how exactly it's going to roll out, but I'll tell you from the running back position, best part about preseason is going to be watching Roschon Johnson. I mean, that's what I'm really going to be dialing into preseason for. No offense to, PJ Walker and maybe some of the guys trying to make the team, but I think of all the guys that's going to get some run, it's this guy Roschon Johnson. And can he be the guy that maybe not out of the gate, but I don't know, maybe around by October-ish, can they start trusting him a little bit more? And then maybe it's more of a 1-2 punch of Roschon Johnson and Khalil Herbert. It'll be interesting to see, but I like Khalil Herbert a lot. He's got a great home run threat. We definitely need that. I mean, to keep a guy, to say that the guy doesn't deserve an opportunity when he's one of the few guys that can take it to the house if you get the ball into his hands, it definitely needs to be considered. So I feel really good about the running back room right now, and we'll just see how it develops as the season goes on.
Let's switch gears and talk a little bit of baseball here. I know the White Sox, it's more your speed, Joe, and they're 9 back in that Central, and they start the series against Minnesota. So what do you think? I mean, obviously there are going to be sellers. I think there's no doubt about that. But who do you think is going to end up going? And or do you have a wish of guys that you want to kind of flip for some value?
I mean, there's almost too many guys, right? Like, and that's the part that I know that we start making a list of how many guys the White Sox should trade. But I mean, how much business can you get done and research and quality prospects can you get back from one front office, right? Can you pull off 8 trades? You know what I mean? You can't. You can't. The Lucas Giolito piece was really tough. That started a couple of days ago. I know that they're trying to extract the most out of probably starting rotation needy baseball teams right now. And they maybe just, I don't know, maybe lost, 15 cents on the dollar a little bit after that last start, because that is Lucas Giolito's career a little bit, is he can be a very solid pitcher at times. He can definitely get blown up very quickly. And he has a little bit of a meltdown factor on the mound too as well. So I think Giolito's got to go for sure. I said it on Good Guys Talk Back that I do think Lance Lynn would look very good in a Cincinnati Reds uniform. And I think the White Sox are very interested in talking to the Cincinnati Reds about their farm system. And that's kind of one of those funny, like, buy lows for Cincinnati. We're not really going for it, but we did something. So everyone be quiet about it. You know what I mean? And I think the White Sox can benefit from that. Man, it's just Twitter. It just hasn't been a great season on Twitter for Tim Anderson. I don't know if you guys saw it yesterday, but after the Chicago White Sox actually won a game, a lot of still photos of Tim Anderson after the game.
I was one of them. Yep.
Yeah, I saw it too.
Yeah, not smiling. He's not smiling, not having fun. Gosh, I wish I could be a fly on the wall to find out what happened there. A guy who I thought not only embodied the White Sox organization and represented it, the face on the poster, but I thought the guy could be an MVP candidate last season. I really thought he had that ability, and it's disappeared on him. You can tell that he's frustrated. You can tell that he's maybe not taking so much accountability and maybe getting more he's already had it with the fans a little bit. So I'm kind of questioning whether some of his woe is me, is kind of being directed toward his situation. The fans don't have my back, all this other stuff. This is why I'm playing terrible. So I don't know. Giolito, Lance Lynn for sure. Kendall Graveman, Joe Kelly. I think those 4 are definitely some definites for me personally. Do I think it's time for the Chicago White Sox to move on from Tim Anderson? I probably do. And if you could package a Giolito and a Tim Anderson to, say, a Los Angeles Dodgers organization, I think that all of a sudden the package gets a lot more interesting and a lot more substantial in that area. You can't trade Eloy right now. You can't trade Moncada right now. I don't think the time is right for Dylan Cease or Luis Robert. I don't think that's the move at all. But sorry, guys. I don't know why that just went nuts on me. But yeah, I mean, look, they have a lot of work to do. I think those 4 guys probably top my list for sure. And it'll just be interesting to see. I mean, this Twins series coming up, I just don't see any world where the White Sox get back into this. And I don't think they've earned the trust or that faith from the White Sox fan base.
It's well spoken, Joe. I'll just leave it at that. But speaking of the injury bug, you brought up Yohan Moncada. I think I said this to you and Nick in the chat during the show last Sunday on the Good Guys Talk Back. I'm resigned to the fact, and I saw this on Twitter from a reliable source early this morning, that Yohan Moncada had a setback in his rehab on his back. That's what I saw this morning. I know. But
I'm shocked.
Right, shocked but not shocked. But I said this to you guys in the chat on last week's show. I'm resigned to the fact that Yohan Moncada, Mike Clevenger, and I hate to bring this guy's name up, even though he's been a great story, Liam Hendricks. I'm resigned to the fact that we just seen those three guys in a Sox uniform for the last time this season. Am I wrong to think it that way, or am I out of my mind? Please bring some sense into this.
I mean, that's very possible. I mean, I'm not gonna, I'm not pouring one out for Mike Clevenger if he doesn't pitch another inning for the Chicago White Sox this year. That never made sense from the start, especially when let's just like, if we can just, and obviously it's incredibly important, and I'm not a fan of it, and it's a big reason why I'm not a fan of Mike Clevenger, his off the field allegations, but even the on the field stuff and the demeanor. Why are you bringing his mix into an already bad mixed clubhouse? That's the part that I could never really figure out. I mean, this was a guy that kind of bounced around from organization to organization. Every time he left, someone would probably under their breath say that he's kind of a jerk. He's kind of a problem to deal with. And the White Sox have already had that issue already with some of these guys on their team. Why are we bringing Joe Kelly? Why are we bringing Mike Clevenger?
I told you last year, Lakina, I gave you that look about Joe Kelly, and he was injured last year.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the only guy is I don't know, we don't have waivers anymore. So I just kind of, maybe I'm not fully understanding of where Liam Hendricks is in his recovery from his elbow injury at this time. If he pitches again this season, it probably would have to be for the White Sox, right? Because they're not going to trade him at this particular point. And if he does pitch again, he'd probably come back and do it in a White Sox uniform, which I'm completely on board with. What an incredible story that he's had this season. And then, of course, he tried to ramp it up too hard, and now he has elbow issues. So, of those three guys, I don't think we see any of them anymore. And I said it on the pod too, like, with Yohan Moncada at this point, sit him down, because if we're going to try and move him, you can't depreciate the value any more than what it is. All you can do is wait till the winter and then talk it back up, maybe to some sort of artificial point where maybe you can move him for something. But man, that has not worked out at all. The dude is hurt all the time. Look, I've had lower back issues before, so you know what I mean? Like, I understand it, but man, this is a song that we've heard way too many times, Moncada, and he can't be trusted. We need to move on from him. And bad signing. And look, that was in the Chris Sale trade, guys.
Yeah,
it was. Yep. It was. So before we let you go, Joe, here again, thank you so much for joining us today here on Sports Zone Chicago. What tell us about your background? How'd you get started? I know you do some comedy too, and how do you have talking sports on these different platforms?
Well, cool. Thank you so much for the question. And I'll try and keep it brief because it's a little odyssey like. I'm born and raised on the North Shore of Chicago. Lived in the city proper for 9 years. Went to Columbia College. So it all kind of started. I started doing radio in high school, just messing around with buddies, playing songs, coming up with bits, doing comedy type stuff. Went to Columbia for broadcast journalism career. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to tell stories. I was doing the anchor stuff, like with the school and everything. I was hosting a show with them, and then I started doing Second City and kind of caught the bug a little bit. Just really enjoyed the performance aspect, and I started kind of seeing some success from it too as well. So right around the time I graduated, kind of had the choice to either go down and cover men's volleyball in Peoria or pursue this other side that I was doing with comedy. So I did that for several years. I wrote a bunch of sports plays. Sports has never left my life. Moved to LA in 2010. So I've been out here in Los Angeles for 13 years. And I got an opportunity to enjoy a pretty, a fruitful on-camera career that I've been very happy with. never got famous, but you know what? That's amazing. I never wanted to. I just wanted to have a job and be a working actor. But then about 5 years ago, I got the opportunity. I started writing for fantasy football again for this website called rotoballer.com. Kind of got the itch going a little bit. And then I started getting involved in being in front of a microphone, talking to people, connecting, hearing their stories, asking questions, trying to figure out the Rubik's Cube that is Chicago sports. And I started that about 4 or 5 years ago with the Bleav Sports Network. And now I'm branched out now to, 4 or 5 different networks. I will be working with Beyond the Big Ten this season. So I will be doing a lot of college football this year. And so honestly, like, I kind of sum it up, like what's so great about what I'm doing now and what I get a chance to do. And thank you so much for having me come on, is that I love meeting new people. I love connecting. I love just talking and having the medium, the connective thread of sports, bring us together in a little bit of a conversation, learn each other's stories, ask each other questions. And I love it. I love it so much. And it's been this wonderful kind of mix of part of the stuff that I loved about storytelling and being on camera and an actor and all that other kinds of stuff. But also it gets me an opportunity to get back into a little bit of the storytelling and why I fell in love with journalism too. So it's been a long road. But now I kind of feel like I'm right where I need to be. And thankfully, you know how it is, right? You just keep doing reps and keep doing reps, keep meeting more people. And it's really an enjoyable endeavor. And I love it.
All right, last question from me, Joey, and then we'll let you go on this breaking protocol here, bro. 2-part question, since you say you're stuck out there in La La Land. What's the temperature of these two fan bases with the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Anaheim Angels? Of course, the Angels, the trade deadline, as we said, we're less than 2 weeks away. How worried are Angels fans of losing Shohei Ohtani, whether it's the trade deadline or at the end of the season? And number 2, how excited are Dodgers fans with the realistic possibility of signing Shohei Ohtani, barring that he doesn't get traded 2 weeks from now, of signing Mr. Ohtani in the offseason?
So the first thing I'm going to have to do is find Angels fans. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Look, okay. So the beauty about living here is obviously you think Lakers and Dodgers, right? And when I came here, it is true that this town is Lakers, Dodgers, USC, UCLA. Honestly, that's it. I get it, the Rams and all that other stuff, but those are the hallmarks that everybody in Los Angeles cares about. In terms of Ohtani, I mean, of course, the Los Angeles Dodgers can put together a compelling package, and they have a really interesting choice to make, right? Where all of a sudden now they are contenders in the National League. Now, I do think that the Braves are the odds-on favorite right now. I think they are a fantastic team, not just offensively, but when you see Strider strike out like 13 guys yesterday, even in a so-so start, you're like, oh, man, this team's got it. But the Dodgers definitely have a chance. So if they were to get a guy like Shohei Ohtani, I mean, they've seen it with Manny Wood, right? With Manny Ramirez coming in and just igniting a team and taking it to another level. So that's a decision that they're going to have to make. Regarding the Angels, look, I want to say some positives first because I just kind of said something negative about them. Going to the ballpark is wonderful. It is a fantastic experience. It's very far away. It's moderately priced. Everyone that works there is over 60 years old and the most delightful employee you have ever met in your entire life. Like, I literally go there in White Sox gear and they're just like, have fun, but not too much fun. Get in there. You know what I mean? Like, there's no rivalry. There's no like boo or anything. Like, it's a wonderful experience going to the ballpark there. But I think as an Angels fan, you have to just see the writing on the wall, right? And unfortunately, that moment when Mike Trout took that one swing and fractured his wrist, that really, I mean, was a metaphor for probably the fracturing of the organization as they know it, because they either are going to have to trade Ohtani in 2 weeks or keep him, and he will probably walk. And then you have diminishing returns on Mike Trout. You probably have to consider trading him too as well. I know that they were a team that was up for sale. The ownership group was looking to move on from the franchise. And I mean, they could be really heading towards an inflection point. Not quite Oakland A's style, but it could really be heading in the wrong direction for them very quickly. In terms of the Dodgers, all I hear in town here is that whatever the price is for Ohtani, they will keep putting $1 on top of that stack of cash until they get him. So I know some people in town, like the Chicago Cubs, I think that would be a fantastic, amazing, prudent, long-term investment. But I don't think Tom Ricketts has the vision. I don't think he envisions things like that. And it looks like the Dodgers are going to do everything they can to put him into a Dodgers uniform. The question is whether it's in 2 weeks or whether it's this winter.
All right, Joe, thank you so much for joining us today again. Where people can find all your stuff, all your channels, all your shows, all your videos, all the other good stuff.
Easiest way is to follow me on socials at Joey Sports Guy. I made it simple and dumb so you can find it. Follow me at Joey Sports Guy, Twitter, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, whatever your pleasure is. I do Bleav in Bears with former Bears defensive end Corey Wooten. We are ramping up beginning next week with a lot of great coverage, so expect multiple shows weekly from us there. Those shows are also being cast and presented by Sports Talk Chicago with the wonderful John Zaglul. We do some work. The roster includes Clay Harbor, among others, that they're adding to the roster for this Bears season. So make sure you check that out. Subscribe to that YouTube channel. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Beyond the Big Ten, more news to come. Episodes coming August 20th. I will be hosting the Northwestern Wildcats show with Corey Wooten. Lucky me over the last couple of weeks. But we're going to try and just cover the games and obviously give everyone the content that they deserve on the weekend basis, because there's still kids on that team that are going to want to try and perform that honestly had nothing to do with the horror and trauma that's happened to that institution over the last 10 or 12 years. Those kids are going to come out there. They're going to play hard. We're going to be there to cover it all. Lakina, Sydney, thank you so much. Thank you so much for reaching out. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad that we met. I hope we get a chance to do it again. You guys can ask me back whenever.
Yeah, but we're glad you had time to join us here today. So much continued success, as I said before. I'll say it again. Great job filling in for Pat Hassel last week on the Good Guys Talk Back podcast with our good buddy Nick Borowski. You keep up the great work, young man, and definitely when football season starts, both college and pro, we'll definitely have you back on our program. And tell those two former football players you'll be working with, we'd like to have them on this program as well.
Sure. Yeah. Be well, guys. Have a great weekend. Stay in touch, and until the next time.
All right. Thank you.
Definitely. Stay safe.
Take care.
Bye, guys.
All right. Take care.
All right. That was Joey Christopolus from Bleav Network, and also too from Sports Talk Chicago as well, contributor as well. So Sid, let's kind of like stretch a little bit, as we're gonna do this stuff rapid fire after the break. Yeah. We got the Oakland Championship. We got a veteran running back finds new home, among others. So a lot to do still. Second City Sports on Sports Talk Chicago. We're wrapping things up coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
And I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Sorry. Welcome back to Second City Sports on this fun Friday fun edition. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. We're in our last segment for today, in our last segment before we head out for the weekend. And we have less than 15 minutes left or so. You can hit us up with your last questions or comments in our comment section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But in the meantime, in between time, you can follow yours truly on Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan again, the IG.
And just a quick update from Wrigley Field in the second game of their 4-game weekend series between the St. Louis Cardinals and the Chicago Cubs. The Cardinals had the bases loaded, but they came up empty. But they lead the Cubs 1-0 as we head to the bottom of the second inning in Chicago. You can watch that game currently on Apple TV Plus if you have Apple TV Plus.
All right, so Sid, a veteran, like I said, I want to pay off this one tease, though. Let's go talk some NFL. Of course, you got the cameras going on right now over at Jets training camp. There actually are some teams that are, doing the training camp thing right now as we speak. The Jets being one of them, and I guess the Hard Knocks cameras are already there. So it'll be interesting to see how all this kind of,
When will Aaron Rodgers go into hiding?
Right. Yeah. I mean, who knows how this is going to look this year. So yeah, and, all the other cool things that's going on right now over at this various training camps, and also to the rate. Well, let's get to the Jets for a second. So are we going to see anything? I know we said that that we're not going to see some like the the more like stuff that kind of made it entertaining. So what are we going to see? What I guess Aaron Rodgers in a dark place, I guess, all like the next 6 weeks, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, he's hiding in a tent.
Meditating around you. However you say it, but okay, moving right along. Look, Melvin Gordon, who's a veteran running back, has found a new home. He inked a let's go to the Jets first, because I guess Aaron Rodgers said in an interview that will probably be shown on Hard Knocks that the Jets are embracing fun. They won't ask Aaron Rodgers about 2024 and all that. They'll see how this season goes. Blah blah blah. What do you think? I mean, I saw a little bit of the comments and I was like, okay, that's nice.
Well, he's trying to reinvent himself to the New York Jets, his teammates and the fan base in general. Because remember, we know he's a condescending guy. He's a cold-hearted guy. If he thinks that you overstep his boundaries, and you notice that he wasn't happy in Green Bay with management the last 2 or 3 years or so. That's why he went kind of distant and went kind of quiet. But right now, he's in a new place. He's in with new teammates, and of course, there are expectations to take the Jets from mediocrity to the highest of heights. We'll see if that happens, but Aaron Rodgers, he's winding down his career. I can see him play another 2-3 years, maybe after this year, but he's embracing all the new challenges right now, and hopefully it turns out to be a successful year for the New York Jets. Obviously, the Jets had to put up some points on the scoreboard, which they couldn't do consistently last year because then they have a quarterback in Breece Hall was injured in the middle of the year with that torn ACL. So as long as that Jets defense can continue to improve, they're one of the top units last year in the league. As long as they can continue to improve and the offense helps them out, it should be a successful playoff year for the Jets. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl. It doesn't mean that they can't, but that Jets team still should be a very good team, provided that number 8 stays healthy.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the real key here. I know Hall's coming back from the torn ACL. I know Quentin Williams finally got his new contract, so I think maybe he'll probably pay a little bit more incentives this year. So we'll see what happens with that. Some more NFL news here. Melvin Gordon, veteran running back, has agreed to a 1-year, $3.1 million deal with the Ravens. So that's beast of their backfield for the 2-time Pro Bowler. What do you think of this signing?
You cannot have any more running backs if you're the Baltimore Ravens. Of course, like J.K. Dobbins, who they selected via the draft a couple years ago, but he's been struggling with injuries. It's been a who's who in that backfield with Lamar Jackson. Let's see what Melvin Gordon can bring. I know he's been in trouble a little bit on and off the field these last couple of years. This is kind of it for him. If he doesn't prove that he's valuable to a team, this might be it for him. So we'll see what he does because Lamar Jackson needs all the help he can get as far as running backs. He has it with the wide receivers, i.e. OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr., for those of you scoring at home. But Lamar has it with the wide receivers. Now, can he get it with the any production with the running backs? Can they stay healthy, first of all? And if they can he get some production out of them so you don't have to run as much?
Yeah, that's good. Well, I think that's really why they kind of brought the signing up so that they don't have to. You got Dallas and Gordon and a few others. Now they don't have to depend on Lamar, especially now you got all that money. You probably are going to want him to run a lot. So I think let the running backs do his thing. So this could be an interesting signing there. Now, I guess the long-awaited nightmare is over for the National Football League and owners. The Washington Commanders are no longer under the ownership of Daniel Snyder. This came down the pike in the middle of the afternoon yesterday. The official, selling of the Commanders took place. Still got a few little I's dotted and T's crossed, but it's all but official. It's pretty much official now. But he sold to the owner Josh Harris for just over $6 billion, I should say, billion with the B, and apparently also too there was some others that came across. He was fined. Talking about Snyder was fined $60 million after an independent investigation concluded that he sexually harassed a team employee, that the team withheld revenue from the NFL. So that's a whole different situation there. I know it's kind of a twofold question there, but the new ownership group is led by Magic Johnson. If you saw his Twitter, he was saw his excitement yesterday. So a new day for the Washington Football Organization, the Commanders.
Yes, we talked about all kinds of trouble they've been through over the last dozen years. And Daniel Snyder, with his business practices and the treatment of many of his employees, of course, there was a bad representation not only for the organization but for the whole NFL and for the city of Washington D.C. They haven't had a playoff win since 2005, and the last time they were in the playoffs now was that COVID year in 2020. So it's been a lack of success there with that franchise, of course, even before the name change. Remember, Lakina, Washington, D.C. is just like Chicago. Football is number one in that city, and for that franchise not to have games sold out, because remember, they used to have games sold out, through the history of their franchise. There's only been since the last 15, 20 years that all their home games have not been sold out. So hopefully if the team starts winning and the image of that organization continues to improve, I think you'll get fans back. But right now, this is kind of the start for them doing something new. You saw it with the name change a couple of years ago. Now with the new ownership, hopefully they can get a better culture in there, better players. They start winning again against those fans in DC will start showing up again.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. Like you said, I mean, and we'll see how they look on the field. I mean, some people were actually maybe say they could be a sleeper in that NFC East. So
Who's that
we'll see.
quarterback? I'm just saying.
That's the kind of the question mark why they're saying there's a sleeper because they don't have a quarterback right now. No one really knows who their QB is. So we'll see what happens there. As listed, I can see sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you. And since some breaking news involving the Bulls just came across the wires about 20 minutes ago. Yeah, restricted free agent Ayo Dosunmu has agreed to a 3-year, $21 million deal to stay with the Bulls, as according to Adrian Wojnarowski, and also Ayo's agent Mike Lindman, and it's kind of interesting, but this actually was a no-brainer. This is probably one of the few no-brainers for the Bulls, I would say, because of the fact that he's a Chicago kid, played at Illinois, had a great rookie year, kind of had a little bit of a step back last year, so now he's got his money. Now he can kind of sort of develop a little bit more. He actually has shown some problems in the last couple of years.
Yeah, hopefully, like you said, Ayo continues to improve. If you listen to some of the people that covered the team, everybody thought that he was gone because, like you said, what happened last year with kind of the up and down sophomore season. But I'm glad he has the chance to stay home. I think it's going to be a great story for him to improve. Hopefully he could take that next step. I'm not saying he's going to be the next starting point guard for the Chicago Bulls. It'll be great, but let's be realistic here. He still has a lot of work to do. He's a hard-working kid. Like you said, we saw promise 2 years ago in his rookie year as the Bulls were in the playoffs against the Milwaukee Bucks. And so I think this is a very good signing for the Chicago Bulls, and especially with Lonzo Ball not playing this year. The Bulls need all the help they can get at that position.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's definitely something that they're going to have to do, and we'll see if he takes that next step. Like I said, I think look, he's only 23. He's not even 23 yet, so I think he'll definitely be kind of like that. Like I said, he kind of be that consistent scorer, and kind of like that floor general that I think the Bulls probably would want to be, kind of that extra guy to kind of score. I know he's been working out a lot. I've seen his social media, so he's definitely trying to bulk up, perhaps maybe to develop that 3-point shot. So I think he'll definitely be kind of like right there. So we just see how his development comes by this time. As soon as we're close and close to training camp. So that should be an interesting signing there. Got a few more minutes here left, Sid. Let's see here. The Cardinals are taking a 1-0 lead. In the bottom of the second inning, of course, like Sid said earlier, you can only watch the Cardinals Cubs game, the game 1 of that series on Apple. Well, the game 2, I should say, that series on Apple TV Plus. So, if you're sick to listen to us, hey, look, we are welcome. So, the Open Championship is commencing over at Royal Liverpool and at Hoy Lake, and easy for me to say his name, Brian Hartman, who's been around for a little bit. I mean, look, he's been a guy that's been in the PGA Tour. He's got like 3 wins. So, this is a guy that has been finished like in the top 15, the Masters a couple of years ago. He's now leading the Open Championship right now. Tommy Fleetwood is 5 shots back, and among some of the other contenders, Jordan Spieth, U.S. Open champion, reigning U.S. Open champion, to say, Wyndham Clark, Rory McIlroy, he's one back, Max Homa, Stuart Sink, who was the 2008 Open champion, also to Henrik Stenson, who won a couple of years after that. So a little bit of extra, Victor Hovland, that's our buddy Christine's guy. He's tied for 26. So, definitely kind of a mixture of, guys that guys you don't know, guys that are kind of up and comers. So this is going to be an interesting championship, because we know that weird things happen at the Open. Yeah, -10. He had Harmon had a great 65, but the weather shouldn't be an issue there. So we could see that high of a score. It may go a little bit higher. We'll see. But I kind of feel like this is definitely going to be an interesting Open championship this year, as usual.
I might check it out a little bit, even though Tiger's not in there. I know he's hurt before people start coming in my neck and yelling at me. I might check it out a little bit, but like I said, we'll see if it should. Like you said, he's always compelling on the final day. We'll see what happens as the tournament continues.
All right. So anything else before we disperse? And I got a couple of more sports medias you want to.
Yes, the WNBA All-Star Game. Their ratings improved. It aired last Saturday on Saturday night on ABC. Improved over the last several years. And Arizona Diamondbacks and Bally Sports, their relationship is no longer. The Diamondbacks told Bally Sports to take a hike. They were trying to negotiate a contract for Bally Sports Arizona to air their games for the next 5 years. They couldn't come to agreement, so the Diamondbacks told Bally Sports take a hike, and so now the Arizona Diamondbacks become the second team in Major League Baseball to have their games produced by Major League Baseball.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be, like, I know I saw that news earlier this weekend. I'm not surprised. I mean, like we saw, the various issues that Valley Sports had the last, couple years and whatnot. So
with the bankruptcy and everything, yep.
Yeah, and Diamond Sports and the parent company. So yeah, we saw that this was going to be kind of like the thing. The Diamondbacks are just the latest team to say, hey, we'll just put our our games on network television, and we'll stream it another way. So it'll be interesting. Like I said, I mean, we've said this for like the last few weeks. I mean, we'll see if other teams start follow suit. And like we've been saying, I know Jerry Reinsdorf, of course, who majority owns Watch Stadium now. We'll see. I mean, their contracts up in 2024. We're talking about for the Bulls, the Blackhawks, and the White Sox. So I'm sure everyone's going to be looking at this very close and see what they do. But it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I'm kind of interested to see what they're going to do here. But we'll see if other teams follow suit.
Yep. And one last thing before we disperse, like a couple other things before we disperse, both locally and nationally. I'll start over with the national first. Did you watch? We talked about this during this time last year, Lakina. Did you watch Winning Time on HBO Max last year? They're coming back for. Yeah, they're coming back for season 2 next month. Yay!
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, they've been doing various promotions about it. I saw a couple of their stars on Good Morning America this week. So they're definitely. Yeah, I guess they're definitely wrapping it up. I guess this is going to be. I guess. This season, coming up is going to be, I guess, a continuation from. I think they're going to, I guess they're going to pick it up. I guess, like in the mid '80s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, when they lose to Boston in '84, and of course, beating them in '85.
Yeah, it's going to be right around there. So I'm wondering, like, okay, how far? I know Magic and some of the other guys have not been very happy with how this is being portrayed, but I guess this is more of a parody. So I guess so. I don't know, but I mean, it should be if you want something like kind of like fun and entertaining. I guess this is something you can probably watch. You can stream it on Max, and I know some various other places too. So it is what it is.
Yeah, remember we said this last year, folks. It's a dramatization based on actual events. When you give your creative powers to Hollywood, they can do whatever the hell they want. And don't forget to Rick Fox, even though he did not play for the Lakers back in the day, folks, he played with them during the Shaq and Kobe era. He's a consultant for their program.
Yeah, so like I said, it is what it is there. But yeah, I mean, okay. Like I said, if you want something fun and entertaining, I mean, look, if you want to check it out, I mean that's your prerogative. But yeah, so you can definitely check it out on Max. I don't know if they're gonna. I think they're gonna do like every Sunday. They're not gonna have all the episodes.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not gonna have all like 10 episodes at once. So it's gonna be a weekly thing. So yeah, you can check it out as a stream on Max and the NBC. Well, sticking with that, the NBC's Big Ten sort of like I guess a kickoff show. I guess if you wanna, that's how you wanna term it as. Have officially announced their new studio lineup. If I can get it up here for a second. I know that that Maria Taylor is going to be leading the charge there. Let me get that pregame thing here. I know they just announced it a couple of days ago. Hold on, folks. live television. What can you say? Here we go. Of course, former Ohio State star Josh Perry, former USC quarterback Matt Castle, and former Penn State star Michael Robinson will join Taylor. Also, to NBC sports reporter Ahmed Fareed will serve as the show's reporter. I guess he's going to be he's going to be reporting, I guess, from the Big Ten sites that's going on there. So the show will debut September 2nd before Penn State as they host West Virginia. That should be an interesting. That was an interesting rivalry back in the day. So I'm glad they're picking that back up. They got 2 Notre Dame games after that, including their matchup with Ohio State in between. So what do you think, Sid?
It's a respectable lineup. I'll definitely be tuning in. Of course, Maria Taylor did great work at ESPN. She does great work with Sunday Night Football. She's going to do a great job here. And I remember Fareed you just mentioned as the field reporter, he covered the San Jose Sharks for a long time, and so he's going to do great work there. Plus, he does Sunday morning baseball for Peacock. Did you check out that a film of him last week? Got hit by a foul ball doing an interview. I'm glad he's okay, but you know, sometimes with those things, it comes with a risk.
Yeah, it's good to being on-field reporters. I mean, look, we know we know Kelly Crawl and some of the others that have done it for years. So of course, did it for the Cubs. Now she's doing it down there with the Braves. So yeah, it can be a little bit of a hazard sometimes. But I'm glad Fareed's okay.
And putting a footnote, put a bow on this program. Locally, 670 score. They brought back former Bears offensive lineman Olin Cruz to be their analyst for this upcoming season. Of course, the scorer lost along with their parent company. Odyssey lost the rights to air the Bears games now over at ESPN 1000, but the score is still going to cover the Bears, of course, with our good friend Mark Grody. Of course, Chris Emma is up there as well, but Olin Cruz will be part of the Bears coverage for 670 score here in Chicago with their pre and post game shows.
There's a joke here, but I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it. No. I know we know too many people at that network. I want to be still in their good graces, so I'm not gonna say anything.
Good call.
Yeah. So on that note, you follow me at Kingdom McGee on the Twitter and at Keyscore on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80, SIDKID80, SIDKID80. Make sure you download the Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And make sure you follow War Media at WARR Media on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
And we'd like to thank Mr. Joey Christopolus from the Bleav Network and Sports Talk Chicago for joining us today. Great job, young man. You can follow him at Joey Sports Guy on the Twitter. Hopefully I have that correct. I don't have it in front of me, but make sure you follow him on Twitter and make sure you check out his work. And he's a new voice in this podcasting industry. So a Chicago guy, make sure you check him out. And we're definitely going to have him back on this program, especially when we get close to football season. And his Twitter is Joey Sports Guy. Once again, at Joey Sports Guy on Twitter.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I'm gonna say we'll make sure we get all that covered for you. Now, of course, you catch Sports on Chicago right here, anytime, anywhere on a Roku TV.
Roku.
All right, yeah, just go on. If you got the Roku app on your phone or whatever smart TV, whatever device you're working on, just type in Sports on Chicago. You catch our show, Sean and Maya. The Smoke Fellas apparently going to be back next week. Yay! So, yeah. So, you catch those shows at any time, anywhere. I'm sure they're going to have some Bears coverage with the training camp coming up. So, yeah. So, I'm glad that they're back with us. So, you catch them, anywhere, anytime. Well, the rest of us.
Yeah, and make sure you catch Second City Sports exclusively on Sports on Chicago every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. One more again, as the kids would say. Catch Second City Sports live in 11 color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, exclusively right here on Sports on Chicago.
All right, try to stay cool out there, folks. I know it's going to get a little bit hot in various parts of the country, including here.
It's coming here next week in more ways than one.
Oh boy, yeah. So make sure you guys stay cool. Stay in the AC or in a cool area if you can. Enjoy all the sports. If you're in, WNBA, I know the Women's World Cup. I know the U.S. Women will play. I think Vietnam tonight. On Fox, so make sure you guys check that out if you can. So for Sid, I'm the king. Enjoy all the sports. You have a championship, all the other stuff. This is Second Season and baseball too, of course. This is Second Season Sports on Sports of Chicago, and we'll see you Monday.
Go Sox, I guess. Holla!